I'm Maggie Ornazian, Director of Nursing for AmeriStaff Nursing Services, and welcome to Boomer Health at Home. On today's show, how can your estate plan protect you from nursing home costs? We will learn the benefits of long-term care and how to plan for the future through estate planning. Joining us today, we have two experts in elder law and estate planning from the Rokowski Law Firm. We have attorney Mr. Patrick Currier, who I understand is essentially a walking encyclopedia of knowledge, and a fellow Rochester Adams High School classmate of mine, and the managing partner, Mr. Michael Rokowski. Gentlemen, welcome, and thank you for joining us on Boomer Health at Home and sharing your knowledge today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
First off, just tell us a little bit about yourself. Where'd you grow up, and how did you get where you are today?
Pat, I'll let you go first.
Oh, will you now? All right. So yeah, I was born on the East Coast, but raised in West Michigan on a farm in Rockford. Got a couple lawyer parents, so I guess I was kind of destined on this path for a while. Spent quite a while in Chicago as a litigator before realizing that kind of preferred working with people, helping people, planning ahead so that we don't have to be fighting in court down the road. Because that was my life before then. It was something's gone bad and we got to clean it up. And now it's, if we can get far enough ahead of it or, get involved at the outset, we can prevent things from going sideways. We still do some cleaning up, but ideally, you lay things out, you plan properly ahead of time, and that puts us in a lot better shape down the road. Much prefer kind of that sort of work than defending corporations in the courtroom.
Nice. So you guys are kind of preventative instead of reactive.
Ideally.
Absolutely. And I'm Mike Rokowski. Maggie gave me a great introduction there. Fellow Rochester Adams graduate. Started my career very similar to Patrick, where I was in workers' comp insurance defense, representing insurance companies to say that individuals were not hurt maybe as badly as they were, or trying to prove they weren't hurt at all. Then all of a sudden, my friends started having kids, and they were like, "Hey, Mike, can you do a will?" And I was like, "Well, hey, I'm a lawyer. I can figure this out." And just totally fell in love with the planning process of estate planning. In litigation, no one's ever happy. Either the outcome's not good, the bill's too high. In estate planning, you get done with the process, this weight has been lifted off of people's shoulders and you're getting a hug. It's like total 180 from what I was doing before, so fell in love with it. And then quick little short story, Patrick and I met each other in a estate planning conference in Pennsylvania. And I was like, "Hey, Pat, what are you doing?" And he's like, "Well, I don't know. What are you doing?" And so now here we are, about 3 years later, and we're still working together. Pat, though, is servicing the west side of the state, and I'm still over here living in Rochester.
Oh, that's wonderful. So it kind of sounds like your law firm is a proactive law firm that likes to help people.
That is correct. We practice happy law.
Yes. Oh, that's wonderful. I like that. Happy law.
I like that.
Okay. So kind of let's start with the basics. What's long-term care?
Pat?
All right. Yeah. So long-term care is a pretty broad category. It can be anything from, independent living at home, assisted living, skilled care. It kind of runs the gamut. But whenever we're talking long-term care, we're talking something that is a permanent or assumed to be permanent condition. It's not like I went to the hospital, I had surgery, I might need to be in nursing home or rehab for a month or two until things go back, to the way they were. It's generally speaking that, okay, this level of care is needed and it's going to be needed likely for the rest of someone's life. And like I say, it really varies from independent living or some help at home with some kind of heavy lifting, where that can be a fairly low cost. And I think a lot of us expect that to come. But when we get to assisted living, to memory care, and to skilled care, you're looking at anything from $3,000 a month to $8,000 to $9,000 for memory care, to anywhere from $9,000 to $12,000 and up for skilled care. Really, the sky's the limit when it comes to the skilled care side of things. So a lot of people have planned for what happens if I pass away, or that's their main concern. But it's this long-term care that we want to focus on first, so people don't go broke, before they pass away.
Yeah, and just to add to what Pat's saying is, so many of these terms have been interchangeably used as kind of like marketing terms. You're driving down the street and you'll see like memory care, and there's not like specific things that are required in order to say that buzzword, right? I mean, you should have things like locked off where people can't just, open the doors themselves, but people kind of get away with different things and they advertise and use them as marketing terms. But like, as Pat said, it's a level of care that someone needs that's not going away, which then is tied to the cost of services.
Okay. So one of the aspects of long-term care really could be essentially just home care.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Which again, though, kind of runs the gamut from the lowest end and least expensive to the highest end and most expensive, because strangely enough, home care is both sides. Because having someone come in and do some cleaning and working on the lawn, that's the lowest end. Having a physician come to your house, or having, an RN or an NP in your house every single day, is far and away the most expensive side. So it really does run the gamut there.
Yeah.
And a conversation that Pat and I are having all the time and try to educate individuals and families about is, making sure that your stuff gets to your loved ones when you pass away, avoiding probate. In our world, that's almost the easy thing to do. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not easy, but the challenge in working with a family from independent living to assisted living to maybe some type of in-home care to skilled nursing, that journey can be incredibly challenging and difficult from a legal perspective. And it's so important just to have some guidance there, because there's so many little nuances in the law that you can either take advantage of or potentially really screw up.
Okay. So from your experience, both of you, I guess I'm asking this question too, with, this big spectrum of long-term care, do you guys have an average cost that you're seeing, or an average, what you're kind of telling your customers?
Yeah, I mean, to more directly answer the question, that long-term care, that skilled care, in southeastern Michigan, you're looking to spend anywhere between, the state average is about $8,500 to $9,000, but in southeastern Michigan, you're looking to spend anywhere between $9,000 and $16,000 per month per person.
Wow.
For skilled care.
Mm-hmm.
Pat did give a good example of kind of how those break down to assisted living and whatever, but that's a number that is just hard to swallow, right? When people hear that, now we're looking at, like, what are our options when it comes to covering this? And I know that's something we wanted to go over today. And, there's essentially 4 options kind of in our eyes. And the first one is to just private pay. And that's as simple as just use the money that you've worked hard for and saved up over your lifetime to use that to pay that, $10,000 to $15,000 per month bill. When that becomes depleted, your second option is to look to family members and friends. And that can sometimes be a little awkward. I've seen it happen where, there's 4 kids and they each chip in $2,500 a month. But I mean, we all have our budgets, and right now with everything going on, having an extra $2,500 go out the door can hurt the bottom line a little bit. Third option is if you have long-term care insurance. Now, it all depends on, we work with families to look at like how good is their long-term care insurance, because we work with financial advisors all the time, and there's just not a lot of great options right now in that long-term care insurance space. It's way too expensive. It doesn't cover the full amount. I mean, when looking at your own policy, you want to look to make sure you have a daily pay rate of anywhere between $300 and $450 a day to really be able to cover that cost of long-term care.
Okay.
Now, had you got a policy in the 90s, early 2000s, those are like gold tickets if they still provide for full coverage for you. So it's incredibly important to look at what that long-term care insurance policy is covering. Because right now I've heard families get quotes of like $4,000 to $6,000 every 6 months for something that you may not even need. So it's worth exploring, but I just know that there's just not a lot of great options right now. Yeah. And then the final thing is what government benefits can I look towards to help pay for this? And that would be either Medicaid or VA. And we do a lot of planning to help people take advantage of that benefit that's available for them if they qualify.
Okay.
Pat,
So the
anything-
take home, the big take home is I hope my parents saved.
Yeah, well, and there's a few things that go into that. I didn't want to interrupt Mike because everything he was saying is totally accurate. And that you kind of have to make the decisions both in advance and when the time comes. Because as difficult as it might be to pay out of pocket for a month or two, there's an awful lot of people who could do that. They wouldn't want to spend the $25,000, but a lot of people, if we're talking end of life care, we're talking you're going into what's in your 401k, your IRA, that money is there, but it leaves very little for the spouse or for the kids. And with the long-term care insurance, a lot of people will come to us and say, I've got the policy. And then you open it, and what happens with a lot of those is that at certain preset times, they'll get a choice to either increase their premiums or decrease their coverage. So yeah, you might have a long-term care policy, but it pays $100 a day, which is great. Now you've got $3,000 a month less you have to pay on that $12,000 bill. So now you just have to come up with $9,000 each month. So you do see a lot of that.
This guy's good. He's rattling off numbers. I mean, this Pat guy, I know.
Just don't double check them. I just say them with confidence and assume nobody will run the digits.
Right.
But that really is basically a lot of this is done. We're talking the monthly numbers, but they look at what is per day pay rate. And when you look at a nursing home bill of like $350 a day, it's like, my goodness, how are you going to come up with $350 a day every single day? And there you're paying for a shared room, you're paying for a base level of care. And you're not paying for, extra stuff like hearing aids, eyeglasses, prescription coverage. That is not part of kind of that base level. And that's where Mike was talking about Medicaid, and I know we'll probably dig into that more later. But Medicaid really does have a massive, oversized role in long-term care in this country. A little over 2/3 of everyone in nursing homes is being paid for by Medicaid, which on the one hand seems crazy, but if you're paying about $125,000 per year for care, how long are you going to be able to pay that before the money runs out? And most people are not going in on Medicaid. They're not on Medicaid from day one, but they get there pretty darn fast at that burn rate.
Okay, yeah, that is definitely something we are going to hit in the next couple of questions. I do have a question for you because this has been coming up within our patient population, within home care and nursing care and skilled care, guardianship. Mm-hmm. What is a guardian and what is their role? I'm finding with some of our patients that don't have family and need care, they just need someone to advocate for them because they're still in their home and it's not like they're in the hospital and they have a nurse to advocate for them. So can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. I'll jump into this one a little bit. So the overall big question here is incapacity planning, right? It's like, what can I do if I can no longer make decisions for myself? And so there's really two roads that you can go. And the first and the easier way to kind of plan for yourself is through a medical and financial power of attorney. These are documents that you can put in place during your lifetime to say who's going to make those important medical and financial decisions for me if I can't for myself. You get to be very specific in what powers are you granting these individuals, when do these documents take effect, and just a lot of other things, decisions around end of life and kind of, they're very comprehensive documents. And this is like in pre-planning and capacity planning. If we don't have those documents in place and someone can no longer make decisions for themselves, whether it's a disability, incapacity, whatever the case may be, now we're required to go through the court system to get someone appointed as that individual's guardian and maybe conservator as well. Biggest difference is guardian takes care of the physical well-being of the individual, the conservator takes care of the money. Easiest kind of way to understand that. And so there's a process that's involved with that. A guardian ad litem is going to come out from the court, interview the individuals, the person who's going to be appointed or petitioning to be appointed. They're going to interview the individual who needs the help, and they're going to make a recommendation to the court as to yes, this person needs help. They can no longer make decisions for themselves. The problem with the court, and we might jump into this a little bit later as well, is it's always time and money, right? It's going to cost you attorney fees and court costs and all those things. And there's going to be a time delay in getting that guardian appointed where no one can make decisions for this individual. So, and then going forward year to year, if you have a guardian conservator in place, they have to report to the court, what are they spending the money on, and get it all approved. And there's, again, more hearings and time and money that's going to cost you. Putting in place a power of attorney can simply avoid all of that. So those are kind of the options when it comes to incapacity planning, what can be done so that someone else can make decisions for you.
Okay.
Yeah. I just wanted to hop in real quick on that, because a lot of people will say, oh, we went to court and got the power of attorney. No, you didn't. You went to court and got a guardianship. And with the power of attorney, since you, the person who wrote it, is saying, I trust this person, that's it when it comes to oversight. There isn't this continual checking in. But if you have to go to court and say, I should make my mom's financial decisions, the court will say, well, okay, maybe, but you're going to have to tell us what you're doing every step of the way for the rest of her life, as long as the guardianship is in place. The only times you really should have to get a guardianship are when somebody is being combative, when somebody is disagreeing. Because with a power of attorney, you're not giving up any rights or authority. You're just saying, hey, I trust this person to do these things for me. With a guardianship, it's a lot more significant because the court is taking away your rights to make your own decisions. They're determining that you don't have that capacity. So if things have to get to that point, they're pretty far gone. And that is just a heck of a position to put a family through if we don't have to. A lot easier to just pull out that power of attorney and move forward from there.
Okay. So basically, everyone has the power of attorney, no matter what their age. So you don't have to waste time and money.
If you're 18, you should have a power of attorney. Full
Okay.
stop. I met with a family, virtually, on Monday who was getting their planning done, who already had powers of attorney in place for their kids when they went off to college. Like, they were joking about it. They were like, yeah, we've got 2 kids off in school. We made sure they had power of attorney before they left. We've got nothing. So maybe we should get on the ball ourselves. But yeah, I think everybody 18 or older should have that, because you never know. I mean, if you get sick and you're 19 years old and the parents call the hospital can't tell them anything. I mean, you know this.
Mhm.
I mean, when we've got HIPAA, when we've got privacy laws in place, it can be a major issue.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Well, good to know. Thank you for that. 18 years old. I should get one. So circling back to Medicaid, how does one qualify for Medicaid?
Pat, you're on a roll.
Okay. All right. Just to pull back for a high-level view for 2 seconds,
Yes.
Medicaid is a joint federal and state program. So we're going to be saying things here that might apply in other states, but know that you should be talking to an attorney licensed in your state who specializes in Medicaid if you're talking about any of these things. It all varies a little bit, and the devil's in the details. It can be really, really close. You can say, oh, this is great. This is what we'll do. It might work in Michigan and fall on its face in Ohio. So just want to make sure that you understand, that people understand we're talking about Michigan Medicaid here. And Medicaid really has 2 camps. There's sort of pre-65 and post-65. There is what a lot of people think of as Medicaid is low-income health insurance, kind of an analogy to Medicare that folks get, health insurance we get when we turn 65. That's not really what we're talking about here. We're not talking about low-income health insurance. It's the same program, but it is how America pays for long-term care. And when we're talking long-term care, there's two big schools of that. There's community-based and institutional or nursing home-based Medicaid. The community plans, they vary a lot. They don't just vary by state, they vary by zip code, where literally someone will say, oh, I'm living in this county. Do I qualify for community-based Medicaid? And we might have to look at where the zip code cuts through their county, say, you know what, if you live 3 blocks that way, you would, but because of where you are, you don't. Medicaid waiver and the PACE program. I know, right? It seems nuts. But if you look up PACE, Program of All-Inclusive Care for the Elderly, and you look at their coverage maps, you'll see that it covers all these different areas. But each of those, so remember how I said Medicaid is state and federal program? PACE takes it one step further, where we take state and federal funding and then have it administered by private groups in different areas, of which I believe there's currently 8 throughout the state who are administering PACE. So we've got PACE of Southwest Michigan, PACE of Southeast Michigan. There's a whole bunch of these programs out there, and they all work a little differently, but the idea there is that they keep you at home while providing benefit, provided that you are safe at home. But for the vast majority of folks, when we're talking Medicaid and long-term care, we're talking nursing care. So the 2 tests there are medical need and assets. There is an income component with community Medicaid, where if you're above about $2,500 a month, or I'm sorry, $2,250 a month, you do not qualify if you have more income than that.
Okay.
But there is no income requirement for receiving Medicaid in the nursing home. It's medical need and it's assets. So medical need it's similar to the activities of daily living. It's called the 7 doors of Medicaid. But basically, if you do have a medical need, then you can qualify, assuming you meet the asset standards. And assets are, you're allowed to have 1 home valued at less than $595,000. You are allowed 1 vehicle, and you are allowed half the assets up to about $130,000, $129,420. You're allowed half the assets to that amount. If it's a married couple, what that means is if you've got $1 million, you have to spend down until you only have $129,000 left. But if you start at $100,000, you don't get to keep the 100, you get to keep half that. So you get to keep $50,000. So it's a house, a car, and half the assets up to that maximum amount. It does change pretty dramatically if you're a single person. You still get the house and the car, but you only get $2,000, which you may note is a lot less than $129,000. So there are some minor other exceptions for if you prepaid a funeral, things like that. But for broad strokes, that's basically what you're allowed to have and still qualify. And there's all kinds of rules about giving stuff away. Well, if I can only have 2,000, I'll just give all my stuff to my kids, and now I have less than 2,000, right?
Right.
No, because I look back. Maybe some of the folks watching have heard the term 5-year look back. Well, that's what it means. If you give stuff away, they'll look back 5 years, and if you gave stuff away within 5 years of applying for Medicaid, they will penalize you. They'll disqualify you. You won't be able to receive that benefit. So it's really important to plan ahead for those things, because the alternative, what most people do, and this can be kind of heartbreaking for us, is they will just spend it down themselves. They'll do the bad spend down, which is, or the not actual spend down, which is where they just give all the stuff away, and then they come in and they say, well, I gave my stuff to my kids, so we're good, right? Like, no, you've created a nightmare. Or the other, which is they will just spend all the money on care at the nursing home until there's nothing left. And then they'll say, so what can we do now? And the answer then is you're pretty well limited. We talk all the time about asset protection. We can protect assets, we can preserve assets, but this isn't asset restoration. Once you've written the check, once the money has gone out, it's gone out. It's not coming back. But there are ways to preserve it, and there are ways to stop the bleeding if somebody is in the nursing home and writing that check each and every month.
Okay, so yeah, that kind of goes into my next question. I mean, during this pandemic and facility living and all the challenges and things like that, let's say I did have a parent that was in a nursing home currently. Could that be something we apply for, or if we were to qualify, or is it too late once you're in the nursing home?
Pat, I'll take the high level on this, and then you can fill in the details. So there's a kind of like Pat mentioned a couple different camps of thought here and different ways we can plan. Pat mentioned the 5-year look back. So when we do pre-planning for a family, let's say in advance, it is a a goal of theirs to protect their assets from things like long-term care. Outside of that 5-year look back, we can use different trust models to essentially, he mentioned giving away your stuff. You can give your stuff to a trust that can then protect your assets outside of the 5 years. When someone doesn't have that 5 years to wait, we internally call that like crisis planning. It's never too late, but just the amount of assets that we can protect becomes less, because there's different strategies when it comes to protecting someone's assets when they're already in care and we don't have that 5-year look back. Because outside of the 5 years, we can protect 100% of what someone is looking to protect through different strategies. But if someone is in care, close to needing care, just the amount that we can protect is less. Every scenario is a little bit different, but just to kind of put percentages on it, it could be anywhere from 50% that we could hold on to sometimes someone's assets are structured in a way that we can almost hold on to everything. So it really is important to meet with, like Pat mentioned, an attorney in your state who understands the Medicaid rules, and the strategies are different in every state. And, we would be happy to help Michigan clients look at, how much can be protected, but it's never too late. Just know that. That's the simple answer there.
Okay, perfect. So, Michael, you did mention a trust. So I've heard this term before, and I'm a nurse, so I have no idea what it means. Revocable and irrevocable trust. What is the difference, and what do they mean?
Yeah, so I'll give you like the what the general public needs to know, and
Dumb
then
it down
I'll give
for
you
me.
like
Yes.
the Black Letter Law, Black's dictionary definition. So if you have a trust that the main goal is avoiding probate, like 99 out of 100 people you talk to about trust, they probably have a revocable living trust. It's a trust you've created during your lifetime. The main goals are to distribute assets easily, avoiding probate to your kids or beneficiaries, whoever that may be. They probably have a revocable living trust. And the easiest way to explain it is you have complete control of the assets. You can change it as much as you want. That's a revocable living trust. Then there's let's call it 40 different types of trusts, not just irrevocable. That's just a part of what makes the trust do. Sometimes that's a scary word for people because they automatically tie it to what they've heard of as a tax planning irrevocable trust. And that trust that everyone's so familiar with, you put your money in it, you can never touch it again. Yes, does it distribute to your kids, without paying the inheritance tax? Yes, but it's kind of a scary thing because you're never going to touch it again. And that's not what we're talking about. If we're doing Medicaid planning, we're talking about a trust that's built under Medicaid's rules so that there's a good balance of control of the assets if someone needs them, but at the same time, they're protected from long-term care.
Okay.
Now I'll let Pat give you like 5 minutes of the real specifics.
I feel like I'm getting picked on a little bit today. But yeah, no, everything Mike said is spot on. And usually when people ask me, what's the difference between revocable and irrevocable trust, I give kind of a smart aleck answer and say, well, you can revoke a revocable trust, you can't revoke an irrevocable. But that actually is true. Like when a revocable trust is a trust that you can dissolve, and that's it. That is the only thing that you know for sure with a revocable trust. Just like an irrevocable trust, the only thing you know for sure you can't dissolve it. But revocable trusts that you can amend, where you can make changes, irrevocable trusts where you can manage the assets. So it really does matter, the specifics of the type of trust that you have set up. So what it is that we're trying to accomplish, it's a matter of picking the right tool. So Mike was saying, there's like 40 different kinds. It's one of those where it's like there's not 70 types of trust. There's 70 times 70 times. I mean, there are just so many different ways that these things can be set up and put together. And that's not even getting into the particulars of them. You can think of it kind of like a vehicle. And it's like, okay, is it a sedan or is it a pickup? And then what color is it and how many seats, and just all these different features that really give you a totally different product at the end when you're like, well, it's a trust. You're just saying it's a vehicle. Oh, it's a revocable trust. Well, now we're just saying it's a sedan. And then it's the particulars of it really, really matter as you get down into it. But basically, important to know that a trust is a legal entity that can own assets or be the beneficiary of assets. So when you've got something like a will is just you talking to the court. You're saying to the probate judge, because all wills go to probate, you're saying to the judge, it is my will, it's my wish that my stuff go to the kids. So please, judge, issue an order, use the state's authority to give these assets to my beneficiaries. But a trust is fundamentally different. A trust owns the assets, and you control them as trustee. But if you're not competent, the trust still owns the assets. And the successor trustee, whoever you named, your parents, your kids, if they're old enough, whoever it is that you trusted, they just take over, continuing to run the trust, and the assets stay where they are. And if you pass away, the assets are still in the trust, and the successor trustee just follows your wishes. They don't need to go to court because they have the authority right there within the trust itself. That's kind of the probate avoidance side. And then when it comes to shielding assets from liabilities, from the cost of long-term care, from lawsuits, from bankruptcy, that just depends on what type of trust structure you have set up. There's plenty of folks out there who do really basic kind of estate planning. They'll put together a will or a power of attorney. But if you want to make sure that it works right, it's like anything. I like to work with folks who specialize in what I'm having them do. I have, a plumber who does the plumbing, an electrician who does the electrical. If something's wrong with my heart, I'm going to a cardiologist, not a GP. And so I kind of see the law the same way. The more you know about your area of specialty, the better you're going to be at it, and the better you're going to be able to advocate for your clients.
Okay. So a trust will protect your assets, and a will tells the trust, whoever's ever running the trust, then what you wish to do with those assets. Is that correct?
Sort of.
Okay.
The reason I say sort of is because so many people who we talk to say exactly that. They say, oh, okay, so the trust holds the assets, and then the will tells the trust what to do. Basically, what you're imagining as the will, kind of the distribution plan, the way that's handled, that's all written into the trust. So things all pretty much get handled there.
Okay.
There are certain uses for a will. You're naming a guardian for minor children. If you want to go to probate, and there are some reasons where we do want to go to probate, usually not, it's kind of obscure, we won't really get into that now, but there are some reasons you would want to do that with a will. But generally speaking, if you planned ahead properly and things are set up properly, everything should be contained within the trust, and court should not factor in at all.
So my next question for both of you would be, if you didn't plan for anything, can the state, quote unquote, take your stuff?
Pat, you want to tackle this one?
For sure. Short answer is yes and no. So that's super helpful. So the state has kind of two ways of taking your stuff. And again, we're talking the state of Michigan, because other states do things a little bit differently. Number one way they take your stuff is they don't actually take it. They just put you in a position where you can't hold on to it anymore. Meaning you, your spouse, your loved one is in a nursing home, and there's a bill coming due each month for 10 or 12 grand. And the state says, no, you have too much money, pay for it out of your own pocket. And that's what people do. They're not actually reaching in and taking your stuff, but you are in a situation where you don't really have any choice except to keep spending the money month after month, or at least that's the way people feel. Talking to folks like us, there are other solutions to that, but that's the first one. They're not actually taking it, but the effect is the same. The other way, though, is where they actually do take your money, and that's what's called estate recovery. So remember before how I said you got to hold on to a house, a car, and some amount of money? With estate recovery, that's where they actually take it. So if you still have anything left when you pass away, if Medicaid has been paying for any of your care, they will recover that amount from your estate. It's also called the Medicaid clawback. So let's say that you've been on Medicaid for 2 years, paid $240,000 or so for that care through Medicaid, and then you pass away. When your house, when your assets go through probate, someone will show up from the state and say, not so fast. Before that goes to the kids, you owe us every dime that we've paid over the last however many months or years. And so the state shows up to recover that amount from the estate. And frequently that winds up draining the entire estate because often there's not much. And by not much, I'm still talking, the value of a home. We can be talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, and the state routinely recovers that whole amount. Michigan is actually fairly lenient on that point, in that what most states do is when you apply for Medicaid, they smack a lien on your house so that even if you avoid probate, even if you try to deed it to the kids or something like that, they'll still be able to take the property. So the short answer is that yes, the state will take your stuff, but for the most part, they'll just force you to spend it. But if they don't get it the one way, they'll come get it the other.
Yeah.
Okay.
And an example I want to give, because I see this all too often, is, people will read things online. Google is a great tool, but they will see these numbers that Pat was talking about. Mom can have one house, one car, 2,000 in assets. So what they do is they split up all our assets between the kids, and then they come into our office and say, you know what, we spent all the money, and now, we're ready to go on Medicaid. And that is not how it works. And a lot of times us kids, right, that's our generation, we'll spend the money on our mortgage, or it will do things with it that we can't get it back. And that puts people in that situation where, yes, they would otherwise qualify. They qualify physically. Their assets are where they need to be. But now we have to sell the house because we have no other way of paying for mom's nursing home care. And so that's where that misconception of the state can take your stuff. They can't take your stuff, but they just say, we're not paying for your care. Good luck until, the penalty period runs out.
And I'm going to hop in with another common misconception. And that is, or at least it's accurate, but then you got to think a couple steps further, which is, okay, I'm a single person and I get to keep a house, a car, and $2,000. It's unfortunate that I got to spend down to $2,000, but my house is my main asset anyway, and that's what I really want to go to my kids. So, okay, they'll get that. Will you actually be able to keep the house? The answer is almost universally, no, you will not. Because if you're on Medicaid and you're in the nursing home and you've got this house out there, who is paying the taxes? Who's paying the upkeep? Who's paying the utilities, right? Who's doing that? And by the way, your insurance went up because now it's a vacant property and the insurance for that is higher than an owner-occupied home. And, oh, you're going to rent it out? No, you're not, because now it's an income-producing property, not an exempt homestead. So what winds up happening is that somebody will think that the house is protected. They'll go on Medicaid, realize they can't sustain that because maybe the kids will chip in. But after a while paying for that, kids are like, look, we're not in a position to keep doing that. Now the house sells, and instead of having an exempt home, what you have is a couple $100,000 that puts you way over assets. Now disqualified from Medicaid until you spend that money down. So a lot of the things that either appear true or actually are true. Yeah, there's an exemption for a home. It has to stay a home. And what the law says versus the boots on the ground reality of these situations can be very, very different. It's very clean on the page. When you see how that plays out in people's lives, the outcomes are not what most folks expect.
Wow. Yeah, you have given me a lot to think about with my parents moving forward. So I have one final question for you guys. And I hear this a lot, a Medicaid spend down. What is that?
Yeah, I can tackle that one pretty quickly here. We've touched on that as we've kind of gone through a lot of this material today, but essentially it's the idea of getting someone qualified for Medicaid and guiding them through, you have to spend down your assets to get to those asset levels we were talking about. You know, the one house, one car, 2,000, one house, one car, 130,000 for a married couple. You have to get to that level before Medicaid will say, yes, you now qualify. So the spend out is that act of spending down your assets to get there, but there's strategies to do so where you can still spend it on yourself versus just directly to the nursing home on your care. There's certain things like prepaying your funeral expenses, home improvements, and there's a laundry list of things that someone can do that take advantage of the money that you have, spend it in these areas first before you just start depleting it through your care costs.
Okay, great.
And I just have to say real quick, I know a lot of people will advocate a spend down strategy. And if you're only a little bit over the limit, that might actually make a lot of sense. You know, a lot of people have heard about prepaying funerals, and if you're a little bit over, okay, fine. But do you want to deliberately spend down hundreds of thousands of dollars? You know, is that what makes the most sense? And very often it's not. And the things that work for spend down versus sometimes don't make any logical sense. If you help pay off your grandkids' college loans, that is a penalty. You're not allowed to do that. That is not allowed under the spend down rules. Do you want to spend $20,000 on yourself for a private flight to Europe? That is perfectly permissible. It's crazy, but these are the things that people might not realize. Oh, but if you brought the grandkids along on that flight, now it's not permissible. See, because you were spending it on them, not on you, right? So it's the kind of thing where if people try to just logic and reason and common sense their way through it, you're going to make mistakes, because this is not about logic and reason. This is about following the rules. And if you follow the rules, you can get the benefit. You can avoid the pitfalls. But if you just say, well, that doesn't make sense, you know, take it up with Medicaid, take it up with your state rep. But just because it doesn't make sense doesn't mean it's not the way it is.
Right. Okay. Wow, you guys, this is some great information, and I'm glad you guys know all of the rules. So one final thing I just want to get from you guys is, where's your office located? What's the best way to contact you guys if someone would like more information? Because I know I do.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So we have 4 offices, 3 in Southeastern Michigan, and then Pat is actually out in Kalamazoo. So we have downtown Rochester, a Macomb office, Bloomfield Hills, and then, like I mentioned, Pat's over there heading up the west side. Easiest thing to do is just go to our website, RokowskiLawFirm.com. That's RUTKOWSKI lawfirm.com. There's a contact us there where we'd be happy to meet with anyone to kind of talk through their unique situation and see if there's anything we can do to help. If nothing else, they'll get some great information as to, you know, what we should be doing to plan for mom or dad or themselves or whatever the case may be. We're doing everything virtual right now, so our geographical location isn't limited. We're working with families all over Michigan, and this has been great because we can have the whole family on a Zoom call so that we're all on the same page and working together.
Oh, that's awesome. Great.
And to that point, we always do the initial consult at no cost. So a lot of people I know Google answers because they don't want to risk, you know, getting on the hook with a lawyer or starting that cash register rolling on that. That's not the way we work. You know, we want to take a lot of time to figure out what your situation is. And then we'll say, okay, it looks like this is what's going on. If this is the result that you want, you would do this, and this would be the cost. If that works for you, fantastic. And if not, that's fine too. But don't let like some fear of like, well, once I'm on the phone with them, I'm going to get a bill in the mail or something like that. That's not how we work. I know Mike would never run and practice that.
Awesome. That's great to know, because I know a lot of people do avoid those first initial phone calls.
Mm-hmm.
So guys, I have one final question for each of you. Be very truthful for me, please. Favorite law show or movie? We always like to end the show with a fun question.
You're going to love this. I watch zero TV.
I'm not surprised.
Not my thing, although Yellowstone has been interesting lately, but that's about it. Like zero TV, other than I've got 3 daughters, so it's like Moana, Frozen, I mean, you name it. And we're watching so many good Halloween ones right now.
Oh, good. Okay.
I do watch a decent amount of TV. I would say probably for vintage would be Boston Legal. Seeing Captain Kirk as a downtown Boston lawyer, that was quality. And then just some of the classics, like My Cousin Vinny and The Paper Chase. I mean, those are the movies that I'm like, well, it's not really like that, but all right, I'm enjoying the novelization of these.
Great stuff, guys. Thank you, Mike and Patrick, for your time and insights today. Our viewers at home, I know, will find this very helpful. Thank you for watching Boomer Health at Home. I'm Maggie Ornazian, Director of Nursing at AmeriStaff Nursing Services. If you have any questions regarding today's program or have any home care needs, please call us at 248-288-2270. And remember, stay safe and healthy, Oakland County.
I'm Greg Jamian, and thank you for watching Boomer Health at Home, the show where we explore the most relevant healthcare topics impacting the baby boomer generation today. As more and more baby boomers seek answers to many times difficult healthcare questions, our goal is to provide ideas, tips, and cutting-edge solutions that will help improve your everyday life and health. It is our hope that you find the following information helpful as you sit back and watch Boomer Health at Home.